Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. The Budget Department releases nearly 90% of this year's national spending plan as of April. The Tourism Department expresses support for a unified visa system among ASEAN member states. U.S. President Donald Trump says Walmart should eat the tariffs to keep prices down. And 2 people are killed after a Mexican Navy training ship strikes the Brooklyn Bridge. Let's take a look at how global markets moved to close last Friday. Wall Street's main indices posted a 5th straight day of gains, fueled by a tariff truce between the United States and China earlier in the week. This comes despite weak economic survey data showing a drop in consumer sentiment and mounting uncertainty over U.S. fiscal policy. President Donald Trump's sweeping tax bill fails to advance in the House after hardline Republicans blocked the measure to press for deeper spending cuts, a rare legislative setback for a Republican president with a GOP-controlled Congress.
It's difficult to say if the enthusiasm about a deal with China is warranted, because first of all, we know that it's only a 90-day reset. So it's difficult to determine what's going to happen after those 90 days. And what it seems to be is, to me, that the market thinks we've got kind of a cap now on tariffs, that in 90 days they're not going to go up. And they could conceivably go down. And so I think maybe that's what's keeping investors enthusiastic.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed 0.8%, the S&P 500 up by 0.7%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq up by 0.5%. Over in Europe, markets also ended in positive territory. London's FTSE 100 gained 0.6%, Germany's DAX higher by 0.3%, and France's CAC 40 up by 0.4%. Subsidies to state-run firms rise in the first quarter, reflecting government priorities in food security and social services. Data from the Bureau of Treasury, or BTR, shows subsidies to government-owned and controlled corporations reached 22.6 billion pesos in the first 3 months of 2025, up more than 15% from last year's 19.6 billion pesos. The increase highlights heightened budgetary support for agriculture, housing, and healthcare, areas crucial to containing cost of living pressures and supporting vulnerable sectors. The National Irrigation Administration received the biggest allocation at 7.7 billion pesos, followed by the National Food Authority with 2.2 billion. Government spending surges in early 2025, but growth momentum remains sluggish amid weak public consumption impact. Data from the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, shows 5.66 trillion pesos, equivalent to 89.5% of the 6.33 trillion peso national budget, was released from January to April. This is higher than the 4.96 trillion pesos, or 86% released in the same period last year, out of a smaller 5.77 trillion peso budget. But despite the front-loaded disbursements, Jonathan Revelas, a senior advisor at Reyes Tacandong and Company, says that the government's final consumption failed to provide a meaningful lift to the economy in the first quarter. GDP grew by 5.4% in that period, weaker than the 5.9% expansion recorded a year ago. The Philippine government is banking on election-related spending and a resumption in infrastructure spending to counteract the growing pressure from U.S. tariffs. But analysts caution this may not be enough. Budget Secretary Amenah Pangandaman says capital spending is expected to accelerate in the coming months, following the lifting of the temporary ban on public works during the May 12 election period. The economy grew 5.4% in Q1, which is slower than expected as investor sentiment weakened amid U.S. tariff uncertainty. Analysts say while election spending provides a near-term boost, it's not a substitute for sustained policy action, including stronger trade deals and investment incentives. Philippine officials have earlier held talks with U.S. trade representatives to seek flexibility on the tariffs that could affect key export sectors. Now, the Philippine Stock Exchange is increasing its fundraising target for 2025, banking on improved market sentiment amid signs of a U.S.-China trade truce. The PSE now aims to raise 170 billion pesos from capital markets this year, higher than its earlier goal of 120 billion pesos. The upgrade comes amid the easing of tensions between the world's two largest economies. The U.S. and China have jointly announced a 90-day truce on most of their recent tariffs, calming recession fears and boosting global investor confidence. Philippine nickel ore exports jump in the first quarter, defying global price pressures as demand from China remains strong. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, shows nickel ore exports hit $144.81 million from January to March, up 45% from nearly $100 million in the same period last year. China remained the country's top export destination, accounting for over $123 million in purchases. A sharp increase comes despite a decline in global nickel prices, indicating resilient demand for the Philippines' raw materials, particularly from China's electric vehicle and battery industries. First Gen Corporation is boosting its LNG imports to offset Malampaya's decline, a move crucial to ensuring energy security as the Philippines transitions to cleaner power sources. The Lopez-led firm plans to import 3 more cargoes of liquefied natural gas before the end of 2025 to maintain a stable fuel supply for its gas-fired power plants. First Gen President and COO Francis Giles Puno says these additional shipments will supplement the dwindling output from the Malampaya gas field, the country's main domestic source. The company's 8th LNG cargo, estimated at 130,000 cubic meters and sourced from the Middle East and Asia, is expected to arrive this month. The timing and volume of succeeding deliveries are still under review. The Philippines is supporting a common ASEAN Visa proposal, a potential game changer for regional tourism and economic cooperation in Southeast Asia. Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco says the initiative, modeled after the European Union's Schengen system, would allow travelers to visit multiple ASEAN countries on a single visa, making the region a more seamless and competitive destination. Originally proposed by Thailand, the scheme could cover up to 9 countries for a 90-day trip. ASEAN received over 121 million tourists last year. And for the Philippines, this could help diversify sources of arrivals amid geopolitical tensions with China over the West Philippine Sea. The country is also set to host the 2026 ASEAN Summit in Cebu and Manila, where the visa plan is expected to be high on the agenda. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most. Your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's check on Asian markets this Friday morning. Right now, we are seeing a sea of red. The Nikkei 225 is down by 0.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index down by much more, down by 1.1%. Shanghai's Composite down by 0.3%. And Singapore's Straits Times Index down by 0.3% as well. Now, here at home, the local market ended flat last Friday, closing at 64.65 as investors stayed on the sidelines amid a lack of fresh positive catalysts. Caution dominated trading as participants monitored global trade developments and upcoming corporate earnings. Early gains were tempered by profit-taking, resulting in sideways movement. Overall, the market's stagnant performance reflects a broader wait-and-see stance ahead of key data releases and monetary policy signals. In the near term, technical support is seen at 6,400, while resistance remains at 6,600. Now, as of 10:16 this morning, the main gauge is flat with a slight upward bias, higher by 0.2% to 64.78. The broader all shares index in the green as well, up by 0.1%. Now, as for the sub-indices, it's showing a mixed picture. The financials, industrial, and property counters are limiting the market's advance, while the holding firms and services and mining and oil services sector in particular up by 2.3%, giving the main gauge a boost as much as it can. Right now, total volume is at 32 million with value at 604 million pesos. Market breadth is positive, but not by much, just by 5. We've got 60 advancers, 55 decliners, while 39 stocks unchanged. So anyone's guess where this market is headed. Now, at the currency market, the peso opens weaker at 55.80 from the dollar from its previous close of 55.64. The Commission on Elections proclaims the 12 winning senators of the 2025 midterm polls, signaling potential shifts in policy direction ahead of the next administration. Re-electionist Bongo tops the senatorial race with over 27 million votes. Trailing him are Bam Aquino and Roland Bato de la Rosa, each garnering over 20 million votes. The complete list of the top 12 senators includes Erwin Tulfo, Kiko Pangilinan, Rodante Marcoleta, Ting Lacson, Tito Soto, Tia Cayetano, Camille Villar, Lito Lapid, and Aimee Marcos. Meanwhile, the proclamation of winning party list groups is scheduled for later today, May 19th. COMELEC Chair George Garcia describes the election as historic, with voter turnout reaching 82.2%, which is equivalent to over 57.3 million voters out of the 69 million registered. He attributes the high turnout to strong youth participation, calling it a victory of the people. Now, as the country enters a new legislative cycle, as the new 2025 midterm elections wrap up, all eyes are now on Congress to address urgent economic challenges. With economic growth losing steam, foreign investment sliding, and geopolitical risks looming, the business community is calling for decisive action. Joining us now to weigh in on all of this and more is Sergio Ortiz, Luiz Jr. Especially the new entrants.
Well, there should be a better approach to business and agriculture sector. With the entry of Bam Aquino, he will be, as he promised, and I believe him, he will help in the area of education where we are so much behind. No? Kiko Pangilinan, Senator, who is promised mate of mine from Nueva Ecija, has campaigned on the basis of trying to develop agriculture. And I think he could be a big help there. For the business sector, I think the entry of Senator Lacson again will be a big help because especially in the area of budget making. A lot of us in the business sector was scandalized with the way the budget was done. And Senator Lacson has a record of fiscalizing budget making, PDAP and everything. I think he should be able to wave red flags whenever there's something wrong with the budget. And the winning of Senator Aimee Marcos, again, we hope that she can concentrate on the foreign affairs issue, especially in trying to come up with a balanced and independent agenda for the Philippines, in the midst of all these geopolitical issues.
Mm-hmm. That said, sir, are you expecting a more business-oriented Congress? Or are you expecting more of the same? What are your thoughts on how this new composition is going to play out in terms of, fixing the economy?
I don't know yet about the lower house, but I'm sure there will be improvement in the upper house.
Okay. What are the top complaints of employers in 2025, sir?
Well, as usual, not only just administration, but the cost of electricity, the cost of goods, transportation, things like that, and of course red tapes. These are the issues of main concern, and little assistance being given to development of a certain sector like the MSMEs, which very much left behind. Just to illustrate, we're the most underbanked MSME in the whole region. No? The last number I saw, which is maybe outdated, but maybe even better than previous number, the way I look at it, we lent out $11 billion to MSME in 2019, I think. As compared to the highest.
How does it compare across the ASEAN in terms of how much each nation lends to this sector?
11 billion compared to the high of $190 million billion dollars by Thailand. The nearest we are was, I think, Singapore, who do not have MSMEs.
Bakit kaya, sir? Why are we not lending enough to SMEs here in the Philippines relative to our ASEAN peers?
I think it's a problem of budgeting. Despite the pronouncement of the executive, the legislature, that we should develop MSME, they're just talks.
Okay, to put it into action, sir, what are the legislative priorities you would like to see our new lawmakers?
We would like, we are now amending the Magna Carta for MSME. We hope that they will really consider putting budgets there. There is no budget. The figure I saw when we were looking for this was yung CC, yung PPP now, which is before was called CCT, I think, yung conditional cash transfer. I think the last number I saw was $87 billion. And just to monitor it, $15 billion spent. Yung budget that is sa MSME, yung DOST, DTI, DICT, i-combine mo yun. Yung tatlong budget doon, compared to, yun lang, monitoring fee lang nung ano. So it's really, and we expect so much from them. Like DTI, we expect investment to come in, we invest to moderate the prices, but to promote
It's
export.
A struggling sector, considering the fact that MSMEs account for 99% of the businesses in the country. And then for the smaller ones, MSMEs, that's 90%, sir. And now there's talk of the wage hike. Lawmakers are debating proposals to mandate a nationwide minimum wage hike. There are talks for it to be 100 pesos. There are talks for it to be 200 pesos. From the viewpoint of employers, sir, what's your take on this?
I think our Filipinos have to be clarified on this issue. When we talk of wage hikes, mandated or legislated, we are only addressing the minimum wage earners. No? And if you expand it to across the board, you include the general manager, the president, and those who will be affected, the distortion. It will be 16% of the labor force. There's about 52 million in the labor market, no? And 10% and 16% is so small. A small minority. So it's nice to say that you will increase the salaries, but you will not be addressing the issue of 84 to 90%. So who takes care of the farmers? Wala namang employers yan. Who takes care of the fisher folks? Who takes care of the jeepney drivers, tricycle drivers, the market vendors, and all the rest? 84 to 90%. Nobody speaks for them. So they will defer to the for ayudas. And every year that is what is happening.
And the wage hike is a hot topic, sir. Should it be passed? What are the dangers?
Well, number one, in the formal economy, which is 10 to 60%, 90% of them are micro.
Correct.
They cannot even pay their 13-month pay sometimes. They cannot even pay their monthly salaries or weekly salary. And you will adjust them that much. They will just
They will either
raise
increase
their
prices, cut jobs,
or take away
or close shop.
or stop. So it's nice to be talking about this without realizing these two things. So that's why the president was right. He said, we have the tripartite board. Let them work it out. And they have been doing that for the last several years, since they were organized by the chamber themselves, the legislators. They were put up there. And in the past, when we try to attract investment, we say we have the lowest minimum wage in the region. Now we have the highest in the region.
Yeah. And another thing that you were pointing out earlier, sir, you mentioned, the 13th month pay, and also across the ASEAN, we have the most paid days off.
Oh, it's nice to some of our legislators to cherry pick, try to see the best practices in the whole world. But at the same time, we judge the success of our legislators with the number of bills they pass. And so what do? They pass leaves. We have about 21 or 22, excepting some additional in some exporters.
The average in the ASEAN is about 11 paid days off. In the US, it's 7. And in the Philippines, it's about 21 to 22 paid days off. So what does this say about the Philippines?
Well, among this, like other that we have the most leaves, paid leaves, maternity leaves, or whatever. If you add all of them, you might end up with almost 1 year leave for women. If they all put together. But the thing is, some of them just do it for the sake of impressing their constituency. The point is,
look at the bigger picture.
The investors,
yes,
especially
absolutely.
Foreigners,
exactly,
are worried
sir.
about this.
Foreign direct investments in the first quarter of 2025 are down by over 80%. Compared to last year. That's a huge figure. And no matter what the government does, sir, kailangan pa rin natin ng suporta ng foreign investors because this is how we can keep jobs here. Ano ho ang masasabi nyo? What concrete policy changes does Congress need to pass to build investor confidence so that we can, attract more foreign direct investments?
With all what is going on, with the tariff things that is going on, and even before that, when we try to get investment, sometimes we go with the president. Not only in this administration. One of the first things that they will say is, you have very erratic policies and laws. We cannot rely on them. We invest and then suddenly it changes. Number two, yung red tapes. It's a good thing that we put into law ARTA. Somehow they're able to correct some of these red tapes, and we will support them because they're doing a good job. Number three, yung mga scandals like the budget scandals, they hear about this, and we have to correct the image. The image. When it happens to the Philippines, we transmit it all over the world. The latest was the kidnapping cases. And we have to show that we are serious about it, especially many of people think it is drug-related. So we have to take it seriously. Unless we are, and some problems is yung legislators, they file bills left and right, and they are impressive, but they cherry-pick what's the best problem, which is not applicable to us. But the investors hear about it also, and they're afraid. So what happens? In the ASEAN regions where we were 1 or 2 before, we are kulelat in investment. Everybody, yung mga companies leaving China, for instance, because of tariff system, they're looking for where to go. We're the last choice. We're the last choice.
On another front, sir, we don't have that much time, but on the political front, the rift between the former administration and the current administration it just keeps widening. Front and center, we have the forthcoming impeachment trial of the Vice President Sara Duterte. How worried are you at ICOP, sir, that the focus of our government right now is on politics rather than on economic reforms?
I'm not. We're not worried about it because they have to go to the process. What we're saying is, let's make it quick because we're wasting so much time on this. Not only this, but on hearings, sometimes the Congress thinks they're NBI or sometimes they think they're COA. I mean, we can exaggerate what enabling legislation is. No? Anything can be enabling legislation. But let's just focus on development. The president is right. No? Let's focus on the economic things now. The problem.
Optimistically and realistically.
But I don't think they're capable. I don't think our legislators are capable of doing that at the moment. They will spend the next I don't know how long.
Optimistically, realistically, sir, I was going to ask, gaano kahaba? How long do you think that this is going to take, optimistically and realistically speaking?
Actually, Maiki, you're good. Your guess is as good as mine. I really don't know, but
okay.
they can really.
Sana bilisan nila.
Good thing is, it's the what they should do is aid of legislation, not aid of election. Wala nang election eh. So baka hindi masyadong matagal yung mga hearing nito.
Okay, all right. And lastly, sir, what's your message to our lawmakers now? Elections, midterm elections are done. The Philippines, our foreign direct investments are slipping. GDP growth in the first quarter was a little lackluster. Interest rates are coming down. What is your message to our lawmakers at this junction, sir?
Well, actually, I think if they can just concentrate now on the economic side, like taking the cue from the president was saying, let's leave the politics now. No? Tapos na election, concentrate na tayo sa where it matters.
All right, well said. Concentrate on where it matters. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. That was Sergio Ortiz Luiz, the president of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. We're going to be taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back. Vice President Sara Duterte says her legal team is now preparing for her impeachment trial and declares that she wants a, quote, bloodbath once proceedings begin. The Senate is expected to convene as an impeachment court in June, with the trial formally set to start on June 30th. Vice President Sara faces allegations of violating the Constitution, graft and corruption, and other high crimes. On another front, Vice President Sara Duterte is urging her brother, Congressman Pulong Duterte, to consider running for House Speaker in the 20th Congress. In an ambush interview, the Vice President said she spoke to her brother about either seeking the speakership or taking on the role of House Minority Leader. Congressman Pulong has been re-elected for a third term as representative of Davao City's 1st District.
Sabi ko sa kanya, baka gusto mo sumaban ng speaker. Hindi pa siya sumagot. Hindi siya sumagot. Iniisip din niya siguro yung chances niya na manalo. Kung hindi ka manalo ng, ng speaker, then kunin mo yung minority. Diba? But wala pa siyang sagot. So I guess he's still thinking about it. Siguro, hindi ko alam.
But while Pulong weighs his options, the camp of House Speaker Martin Romualdez earlier claimed to have secured over 240 signatures in support of his continued leadership. Deputy Speaker J.J. Suarez insists it's not a loyalty check, but a show of unity for the next 3 years under President Bongbong Marcos. Senator-elect Camille Villar says she is open to a congressional investigation into Prime Water, the water utility firm owned by her family. Prime Water has come under fire in recent months, with customers complaining about intermittent supply and rising costs. This has prompted Bayan Muna and other consumer advocates to file a formal complaint with Malacanang, urging the termination of the company's joint ventures nationwide.
Unang-una po, sinabi po natin na ang kakulangan sa serbisyo ay walang puwang sa administrasyon ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. Ang pangangailangan po ng tao sa malinis na tubig, sapat na supply ng tubig, ay dapat lang po nararapat at hindi pa negosyo lamang, kundi ito ay dapat na kinakalinga ang pangangailangan ng taong bayan. Mag-uutos po ang Pangulo para mag-imbestigahan po ito.
In a statement, Prime Water echoed the position of Senator-elect Villar, saying it welcomes any investigation and is ready to cooperate with Congress. A verbal altercation on Election Day at a Makati polling center raises questions about conduct and order during one of the country's most high-stakes political exercises. Politico.com PH reports that a shouting and shoving match broke out between the camps of Philippine National Oil Company Renewables Corporation Chair John Arenas and car enthusiast Windy Imperial at Dasmariñas Village. The dispute allegedly began after claims that Arenas ordered the closure of a door leading to a polling precinct inside the subdivision. Arenas denied the allegation, describing it as a false accusation that offended him. The incident comes as the Philippine midterm elections aim to restore public confidence in democratic institutions, and it highlights the heightened emotions and power struggles still present at the local level. Both Arenas and Imperial have sons who won council seats in Makati. Martin Arenas under the ticket of Congressman Luiz Campos and Dino Imperial under Mayor-elect Nancy Binay's slate. Now, a cultural celebration in Quezon City turns into an economic boost for local food businesses as the Laoma Lechon Festival draws thousands of locals and tourists. Held every third Sunday of May, the festival features colorful floats, costumed roasted pigs, and lively street parades in honor of Nuestra Señora de Salvacion de la Loma. Longtime lechon establishments like Mila's saw spikes in sales as crowds lined up for a taste of the city's iconic dish, cementing La Loma's status as the lechon capital of the Philippines.
Siyempre, iba talaga yung may lechon sa festival. Kailangan pag piyesta, dapat may handa talagang lechon. Tsaka hindi namin talaga tinitigilan yung lechon.
Beyond celebration, city officials say that the event plays a growing role in promoting domestic tourism and supporting small food entrepreneurs, especially as the country looks to cultural economy drivers to sustain its post-pandemic growth. We're taking a quick break. Business 360 will be right back. Diagnosis over the weekend, saying that the cancer has metastasized to the bone. He and his family are currently reviewing treatment options with doctors. The statement notes that while the disease is aggressive, it is hormone sensitive, meaning it can still be managed effectively with modern therapies. U.S. President Donald Trump wished Biden a speedy recovery in a social media post, a rare public gesture between the two longtime rivals. Biden's health condition comes at a time of heightened partisan division in the United States, a country whose domestic stability and policy direction remain key to global markets, security, and trade flows. U.S. President Donald Trump lashes out at Walmart for blaming tariffs on its potential price hikes, a dispute that underscores growing tension between policymakers and the global retail sector. In a social media post, Trump criticizes Walmart for using his tariffs as justification for raising prices, saying the retail giant, which made billions last year, should eat the tariffs instead of passing the cost onto consumers. Walmart, which sources a third of its products from overseas, including Asia, said it remains committed to keeping prices as low as possible for as long as it can. The exchange highlights the growing strain on global supply chains and multinational retailers, with possible ripple effects on exporting countries like the Philippines, which supply consumer goods, textiles, and electronics to U.S. retailers. Thousands take to the streets in Spain's Canary Islands to protest the impact of mass tourism, sparking global discussions about sustainable tourism models. Demonstrators say over-tourism is pushing up housing costs, causing traffic problems, and straining public services. Organizers stress they're not against tourism, but criticize what they call a predatory model that hurts environments and communities. The Canary Islands receive over 1 million foreign tourists each month, despite a local population of just 2.2 million. Officials are now asking the European Union for housing support in the region's outermost areas. Tourism-dependent markets like the Philippines, which is seeing a surge in foreign arrivals, are closely watching these developments. Local destinations such as Boracay, Siargao, and Palawan have faced similar pressures in recent years, forcing the government to balance economic gains with environmental and social impacts. Now, 2 people are dead and more than a dozen others are injured after a Mexican Navy training ship strikes the base of the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, the vessel, carrying 277 people, lost power and collided with the bridge, according to New York City Mayor Eric Adams. The ship was on a global goodwill tour and en route to Iceland at the time of the incident. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board has launched an investigation to determine what caused that collision. Most crew members are expected to return to Mexico in the coming days as authorities continue to look into the incident. Pope Leo XIV formally begins his reign as leader of the Catholic Church, delivering a strong message of unity during his first official acts. In his first address, the new pope calls for healing within the church, reaching out to conservative factions who felt marginalized under his predecessor. He vows to preserve the church's traditions and, quote, not rule like an autocrat. The inaugural Mass drew world leaders, including Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio were also in attendance, underscoring the geopolitical significance of the new papacy at a time of growing global divisions. Now, British singer Elton John once again speaks out against artificial intelligence, warning of its long-term threat to the global creative economy. In a recent interview, Elton John criticizes the British government for proposing that tech companies be allowed to train AI models using music and other creative works without guaranteed compensation for the artists. He calls the move theft, urging lawmakers to protect intellectual property and artistic rights in an era where AI could disrupt entire industries.
It's no good putting a Biba Doobie song, for example, and putting it into a computer and say, write me a song like Biba Doobie, or write me an article like Marina Hyde from The Guardian. That is just, it's just horrible. It's George Orwell times 1,000. The government have no right to do this to my songs. They have no right to do it to anybody's songs, anybody's prose, anybody's journalism, anybody's creative ability. They have no right to sell us down the river. And let's put this into perspective. We're not against AI. AI can do wonderful things. But when it comes to music and creativity, let's draw a line here, please.
The debate highlights growing global pressure to regulate AI in a way that balances innovation with fair rewards, an issue now facing not just European creators, but also developing markets like the Philippines, where music, film, and digital content are emerging export sectors. Now, Battle of the Brains, the legendary quiz show hosted by David Celdran, makes a comeback, this time on the Bilyonaryo news channel. The Billionario Quizby, or BQB, brings a fresh twist to the classic format, with nearly 30 college students competing in elimination and semi-final rounds, leading to a final showdown for the grand prize and the title of BQB College Champion. Before Season 1 officially begins, a special episode, Return of the Champions, will air on May 31st, reuniting alumni from the original Battle of the Brains in a celebration of intellect and Filipino excellence. A new stage for Filipino talent, the first episode of BQB premieres on June 14th. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.